Yo, yo, yo. You got Azariah. And we're back. Kind of. I'm hoping that, going forward, we'll start streaming every day again. We're coming back with a little lighthearted. So the biggest reason I stopped streaming as of last month was I just didn't feel like playing too many video games, and then the games that I did play are not streamable type of games. So now I'm feeling like playing video games again, so we'll probably start streaming. I think the game plan will be a short stream tomorrow, then we'll start filming the rest out, but hopefully we start playing some fun games, hanging out again. But today, mostly because I've been wanting to do this for a little while, and people ask questions pretty often about stories when we get into it. I figured I'd have a nice place for them to go to have when I do recommendations for all the stuff that I'm reading. Maybe one day in the future, in a little while, we'll update this again and see how things have changed. Let's get some music popping in here. Some old classy. Yeah! So, I will quickly go through how I'm gonna review this. And then we're gonna go through basically all the stories. You'll see the first in here. You also notice I haven't read it in 3 months. So, the final scale will be based on a 1 to 10. Hopefully all chat and stuff is working as well. It's been a while. I don't know if there's been any updates or jazz like that. You never know how things change. Yeah, I like my chat. I don't think the chat's working because I see. Hey, Damien, how is it going? Oh, there it goes. It was just being delayed. I mean, it's weird because, like, none of these are any kind of light novels. These are just legitimate stories that are on websites. And for the most part, people pay a lot. Or some of these people do pay, not a lot. I mean, I pay $5 a month on some. People pay a nice sum of cash in total to a lot of these to be, like, basically writers full time. So, these will be fully based off a scale of 1 to 10. Actually 2 to 10. And right above my head, you'll see, so I'm going to rate this on 2 things. 1, how fast I read after an update, and then my general thoughts. And how fast will work like this, where 5, I'm a patron supporter, and then 4, as soon as it's updated, I'll read. 3, I read in bulk, or I wait for it to update a little bit. 2, I'm kind of not sure if I want to continue reading, and 1 would be on a hiatus. And then 1 to 5, just general thoughts. Those ones will be more subjective, depending on each and every story. But at least the 1 to 5 on how I read, how fast I read, will give a good baseline. Because I think for the most part, all the stories that I've plopped in here are like pretty high quality, top notch. I don't really follow too many stories that like if I'm not gonna like a story, it's just not gonna be here. And then I will at the end have this nice little Google Doc of all of our ratings that I've made. And we'll kind of go from there. So the first one, and then I'll quickly scroll through like just how many stories there are. Shit, there's a lot of stories. We're trying to get through as many as possible. Yo, me too. I have this, and then can I pop this down? Can you see this? Oh, you can't see this, but I have a whole slew of manga stuff on here as well. So the first story here, and I'll kind of give a brief synopsis. Actually, I wonder if yeah, we can kind of read the, what's the word? The little story synopsis at the beginning, and then I'll give my quick little reviews about it, and we'll kind of go from there. So this one's called The Dark Lord's Home for the Undead Heroes. I read it. It's been, like I said, it's been 3 months, so this one is on hiatus. Yeah, this one's on hiatus. I haven't read it in a little while. For the most part, this story is, I think, pretty enjoyable. Julian Crane seldom cares for anything but his magic and research. When the gods decide to condemn him out of the blue, naming him Dark Lord and painting him as a villain in the eyes of mankind, he moved on with his life, caring nothing about their scrutiny. But their ways are ineffable, and when they start sending heroes, mere children, to throw their lives against him, he vows to make them pay, one undead hero at a time. I have a Patreon I could link. Anyways, this story's been going on for a long while. We can kind of look at the general reviews. I'm not going to read any of the reviews in detail. Oh, you can't even see them. Never mind. don't worry about the reviews. So I read this story a little while back. For the most part, I think I enjoyed when I was reading it. I think the biggest problem is just at least why it's just not the most entertaining. I guess that's the pretty damning review, but it's reached the point where I'm like, I'm not super curious about the plot going forward. Basically, heroes are sent at our newly named Dark Lord, and they are literal children, like 16-year-olds who are trying to fight and kill and murder and shit like that. And the Dark Lord's like, hey, I ain't having any of that shit. He's just a nice guy. So of course he kills the hero and then experiments with their connection to the weird god that they send, and it's a whole thing. It's pretty interesting. I think I'd give it a 3 out of 5, just as like, it's average, nothing too special. And because I dipped it and I haven't read it in 3 months, it's gonna get a 1 out of 5. Oh no, these are all gonna not like this. 1 out of 5. Oh man. 1 out of 5 for current reading speed, and then 3 out of 5 for enjoyment. A pretty non-stellar start, but we'll get to some good ones pretty shortly. Vigor Mortis. This one is really good. I read this one as soon as it's updated, which is a 5, or which is a 4. So in the world of Sky Island, orbiting around a core of mist, humanity is besieged with countless threats. When a young girl from the slums unwittingly becomes one of those threats, she finds herself capable of horrific things that you can't help but learn to love. Vigor Mortis is a lighthearted story about existential terror. Come for the horror, stay for the hope. I really enjoy this story. It is exactly what you get from this synopsis. It is indeed a lighthearted story about about terror. I'm back here. I think the best part is because of the horror. It has a nice dichotomy that you don't really get too often, where the lighthearted and the dark-hearted stuff go pretty hand in hand, where like in some chapters you're getting nice, fun-filled, love-filled chapters, and other ones you're getting these horrific horrific stories. And I will denote if there are any kind of less than savory types of content, like sexual content and stuff like that, such as Blue Core. That's a very good description. It's honestly a pretty good story about growing up too. From when she first had and how she kind of like stumbles upon her crazy powers and all of that it entails, and kind of the horror that it entails as well as we get further into the chapters. I think it starts off a little bit slow, and then probably about like chapter 20 or so from onwards, it picks up pretty intense, and I haven't been able to put it down since. So this one, Vigor Mortis, would highly recommend. It is a 4 out of 5. I'm so over Google Docs. 5 for my current read speed, and then I'm gonna put a 4 out of 5 as well for my general enjoyment. It's a good whiplash. Not too many stories I can say about that. The whiplash on some stories is pretty brutal. This one keeps it well in line with good characterization and some good characterization, cool characters, cool story, and then a cool future on. It is, yeah, it's edgy, definitely. There's some really screwed up chapters, especially later on once everyone's kind of developed and we start learning about some of the big antagonists. Quite a fascinating little story. So we'll pop on for that. Like I said, would highly recommend. Pretty good overall. We'll pop into the Path of Ascension next. This one's interesting, and I'll read the synopsis, and then throw my thoughts at it. So this story follows Matt, a young man planning to delve the rifts responsible for monsters that destroyed his city and killed his parents. His dreams are crushed when his tier 1 talent is rated detrimental and no guild or group will take him. Working at a nearby inn, he meets a mysterious and powerful couple. They give him a chance to join the Path of Ascension, an empire-wide race to ascend the tiers and become living legends. I should actually also open these all the way up. With the recommendation and a stolen skill, Matt begins his journey to the peak of power. I'm gonna be honest, this summary is not the best. Let me pull this back over here. I enjoyed the story at the beginning. It starts off exactly as the story summary says. Yeah, tier 1 is the lowest. You go up in the tiers. And it is a Shia. How do you, I always forget how to pronounce that. I feel really dumb every time.
Ciencia.
Ciencia. Yeah, it's got these weird whatevers, letters, or syllables. But, I think very early on, this is actually a story that I was on Patreon for a little while. As you can see, I haven't read it in a month, but that's not really concurrent to where I've read up to. The story has like probably one of the best starts, I'd say. A unique kind of tier system, a cool in-depth literary RPG style, mixed with cultivation. It was quite cool. I kind of, like roughly a month ago, exactly when I stopped reading, I kind of just lost interest. Like I said, it starts off a solid 4 out of 5, easily. Like, I was gripped in so much that I was willing to spend money on. And then through time, I think some of the reviews mentioned this, but the luck and how it goes from him relying on himself to starting him working with other characters is kind of frustrating in the way the author writes it. It's more along the lines of, it doesn't feel lucky per se, but it feels like a lot of stuff is just kind of given to him. A lot of the initial problems just kind of like fade away because of our other main character, our female lead is so understandably powerful. Not her skill, but from her family. So it kind of falls off. I think it doesn't dip too far. I think it's still like a 3 out of 5 overall. It's just something about him being so cool and having so much need. I think one of the reviews talks about how there's a lot of points where he stumbles upon things that are quite fortuitous, as you do. It's not like unusual in this genre. But instead of like selling it, he keeps it when he could be like super rich. The money system is quite complicated. Basically like a tier 1 gem, you need 10 tier 1 gems to get a tier 2, but a tier 3 needs, 10 tier 2s. So money quickly gets out of hand. And I just stopped enjoying it. I think I agree with some people saying that the story loses a lot of it turns from a strive to survive, a constant struggle of like money and trying to worry about other teammates, to just kind of like everything's super chill, slice of life kind of. And it loses that initial drive that was propelling it forward. So I'm kind of going to put this out of my current read speed. I'm kind of waiting. 3 out of 5. I'm waiting for it to catch up to where I ended off on Patreon. And I dropped Patreon. I'm no longer reading Patreon. And then I think I'll make a caveat where it starts a 4 out of 5. And then dips to a 3 out of 5. And then maybe at the end we'll call it like a 3.5. But, I would recommend it and seeing where you lie with it. It's one of those things where I think if you enjoy the story and don't mind the slice of life nature that it falls into, you'd definitely be enjoying this one. This one's fun. So this will be the last one that is updated since I last read, which was this morning. This one, Beware of Chicken. I've mentioned this one before on stream. Let me go read the synopsis, because this one's quite good. Jinro wanted to be a cultivator who defied the heavens, surpassed all limits. Unfortunately for him, he died. Now I'm stuck here. Arrogant young masters, heavenly tribulations, cultivation for days on end, and getting into life or death battles. Yeah, no thanks, I'm out of here. In which a transmigger? I've actually never said that word aloud. Decides that the only winning move is to not play. And let's go read through. So of course, Shinshiya, comedy, martial arts, portal fantasy, isekai. I'm gonna be honest, this is probably one of the few 5 out of 5 I'm gonna recommend on this entire stream. This is probably one of the best Shinshiyas I've read in a long time. It is both, the main character is super cool, all the characters around him are super neat, and then the story that, you know, it's slowly been unfolding as time has gone on is something out of this world. The characters, like, I'm a big fan of cool character interactions, and Beware of Chicken probably has some of the best character interactions. It makes, so, OP main characters are interesting, and I'm not gonna call our Jinro here an OP main character, mostly because out of this entire story, there has been like, so this has been going on for almost 6 months. It has a ton of chapters. There's not been many fights between our main character. He just gives off this air. So he's, it's an isekai. So he's from modern day, and our cultivating stuff is kind of from the past days. Dude, it's so good. The way the names of things are misconstrued. So I'll give an example here, because I think this one deserves it. So our cultivator escapes, goes on a journey, comes across some land, and decides he's gonna start a farm. You know, wants to live a simple life as a simple person with mystical powers that he has. Doesn't really care for them. So he, of course, purchases a various, you know, starting equipment and some chickens and stuff, and starts going to make a farm. And one of the first things we discover is he names some of his roosters and such and chickens. He names one of them Big D. You know, jokingly, like, ha, 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 ha. We're naming a cock Big D. How funny. How funny is that? And, you know, things continue on from there. And then, our Mr. Big D becomes, this would be a little bit spoilery, but I think it sells the story, becomes a spirit beast in a sense, a sentient creature that can think based on the, you know, the so on and so forth. So, Big D is now a spirit beast of the Farem, and all these like English words that I don't know, that were unusual now have now split off to these like actual name characters, and Big D becomes BD because Big D doesn't fall into the line of like normal cultivation names, so the chicken thinks his name is BD, and he's defender of the Farem instead of the farm. It's hilarious, it's funny, it progresses at a pretty cool pace. People have complained of how the 2 acts go. We're calling them 2 acts because that's currently out there. The first one is all about Jinro and how he's like making a farm and some of the struggles along the way and some of the stuff that happens. And then the second one takes a split off to the characters around the Farem. And I'm gonna be honest, some people didn't like that, but I think it just enhances the entire experience. I would highly recommend Beware of Chicken. The only reason I'm not a Patreon supporter of this is because it's just, I think it's you only get 1 chapter for $5, and it's just not cost efficient. I'm a little strapped for cash because I'm not working right now. So it's one of the few where I'm like, once I start working, I'll become a patron supporter. But at this moment, I am currently not. But yeah, totally recommend Beware Chicken. Probably one of the best stories I've read on Royal Road. And when I do these other kind of reviews on these, how I'm enjoying it, all these stories have immaculate grammar, or at least for the most part, that no obvious mistakes. Like I like to think I have pretty high standards. So all the things I'm not mentioning, assume they're solid or at least unnoticeable for the most part. Because I could talk. I'm a big fan of like at least basic grammar, and not having that is a hard sell point. Just through enough time reading, please don't. Crappy fanfiction. I've become a grammar Nazi. I don't know how that's worked out. Alright, let's talk about Dragon's Dilemma. Typheus is a dragon. To the humans hunting him, he's nothing more than a monster. A mindless beast to be killed for levels and glory. To him, adventurers are not that much better. Exiled from his home due to traits on his status, and so very tired of killing adventurers on a near daily basis. Armed with a millennium of mystical knowledge and a new skill, Typheus decides to seek refuge hidden amongst the cowed remnants of humanity that populate this world. This is his story. Let's pull up all these tags here. This one's pretty good. It is indeed exactly what you get on the cover. A story about a dragon trying to fit in with human society. It actually delves off pretty quickly. I do love our I'm gonna call them two main characters, which is Typheus, who are our dragon, and then a female lead he comes across later. Most recently, there's been a big development in terms of, I'm trying to see if there is a general review. A pretty big turning point, not in terms of the story, but in terms of character and how they want to go forward. It's pretty interesting. I enjoyed this one. I think the lit RPG stuff is pretty fascinating. The dragon, our main character, feels like a dragon. Like, there's a lot of stories where monster main characters feel more human. This guy feels like a dragon trying to fit in, instead of a human trying to be a monster trying to fit in. So this one's pretty good. I enjoy this one. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. Let's give this one I do read this one as soon as it comes out, so 4 out of 5 out of that one. We'll do a 3.5 out of 5. I think it's above average. I think solid would be a good term. It's not groundbreaking in any sense at this point. Also, out of the few stories here, this one's only 2 months old, so there's not been super big plot development. Like I said, this last chapter here, one of these two chapters, had some pretty big changes recently, which of course as always turns people off. But I enjoyed the chapter. I'm trying not to get too much spoilery because I feel like that would be dumb. Also, as you can tell, I'm just amazing at reviewing things. Sense for Magic. Let's review this one. I love this one as well. Vance is a young man who's been blind since birth. He lives with his father and older brother. Over the years, he sought remedies for his affliction, but had no such luck. This year, an arcanist visits the small town of Weathermain. Vance is curious and intends to visit this powerful stranger, hoping for either help or hope. What he receives is something else, something greater. Opportunity. This book follows his tale from afflicted young man to budding arcanist, his struggles along the way, and hopefully a little humor. The little humor thing hasn't been too noticeable. You know what? Comedy is such a hard sell for me, because for the most part, like, I gotta like all the stuff before I gotta like usually comedy is not enough to just sell. The prickles of the fire are getting a little bit loud. Like, what's the way to put it? Let's check this out just a little. Like, there's definitely a few novels out there that I've read that they're like, it's so good, or like my hilarious romp into so and so, and it takes me a little bit. Humor has to grow on me for the most part. But this story's pretty good. The progression is real cool. The whole magical system behind this one, it's not lit RPG at all, or Shia, which is a lot of the novels I do follow. But the magic of this world is fascinating, and it's really cool to read about. A lot of stories struggle with the MC, our main character, just kind of being by himself and trying to like study stuff, but Vance is a pretty good guy at it. And also the author is quite well reviewed. What am I trying? He's quite good at painting a picture of how the studies go and such like that. The story is pretty cool. The struggles along the way work really well. I really don't have any complaints about this story. I wish it updated more often. Trying to think. The overall plot is pretty solid as well. It's got a kind of driving force behind it for various reasons that don't seem outrageous. There doesn't seem to be too much luck or heaven-defying skills as some of these other novels will have. It's usually the struggles feel worth it in the end for this one. But I would recommend this one for sure. Let's go pull this into our lot. Sense for Magic. I do read this one out. I do this one as soon as it updates. It usually, I think this one's a weekly update, so it's a little bit slower. I'm gonna go 4 out of 5 for my general enjoyment. It's just good. I really enjoy it. Not too much to say about it. There's not many bad things to say about it. But would highly recommend Primal Hunter. Our first special one, I'm gonna call. I mean, Beware Chicken, I think, is very special. But our first notable one for separate reasons. Let me read and I'll explain why. On just a normal Monday, the world changed. The universe reached a threshold humanity didn't even know existed, and it was time to finally be integrated into the vast multiverse. A world where power is the only thing that one can truly rely on. Jake, a seemingly average office worker, he's not, finds himself thrust into this new world, into a tutorial filled with dangers and opportunities, in a world that should breed fear and concern, an environment that makes his fellow co-workers falter. Jake instead finds himself thriving. Perhaps Jake was born for this kind of world to begin with. I think this last little part is a pretty solid caveat. So this story, actually, this is a recent pickup in the last few months. I thought this story was something different, so I just ended up skipping over it a lot. It is quite the long story. You'll see this one's been almost written for about a year here. And it has 230 chapters. It's nuts. I am a patron supporter of this one. I read an update this morning. This is a very much a fighty romp into a vast and curious world with it sets itself up pretty well for progression. And a lot of these patron, I'll talk about this maybe later at the end. So I'm trying to get into now, but I truly enjoy this story. Our main character is a psychopath in the good sense. He feels detached, I guess would be the best way to put it, and it makes him kind of thrive in this weird environment. And there's some conflicts that come over it as well. It is a lit RPG, so not super heavy on like number crunching, but that good portion where there's some numbers, you see the numbers going up. We'll talk about lit RPGs maybe at a later date and why I'm fascinated with them as a reader. I'll compare this one most to Azariah Healer, which we'll come across later. Where at the beginning portion of this novel, it's a lot of him fighting, him striving, him concocting things and learning about the world and getting stronger at a more rapid pace than other people. And we're kind of finally getting to the point where the tutorial ended. That whole thing kind of completed in itself, and we now have to go back to the real world, which is cool because the real world is an entire different genre in a sense. It's like not like a genre change, but more like a genre evolution, to where he now there's bigger things going on. He's got cool things to worry about, like setting up civilization again, because it's all been ruined and monsters and shit are invading. Definitely a highly recommend novel. Very well written. I think one of the better novels overall. If I had to put this one, I think this would be a top 10 on Royal Road itself. Beware of Chicken is also a top 10. But since Beware of Chicken is kind of our 5 out of 5 holder, I think it's weird. I'm a Patreon supporter of this one, but I think Beware of Chicken is more interesting. This one feels like 5 out of 5 because I paid money, and we'll do 4.5 out of 5. I think Beware of Chicken is more grounded, I'd say, in terms of writing style. It feels more worldly. And because of the way the novel is written in comparison, it feels more alive. But Primal Hunter is super cool for characterization, for progression, and kind of the big, huge fights he gets into as he progresses. They're all very well written. It's a ton of fun. Would highly recommend. Anything I support on Patreon is like really good. Dear Spellbook. This one's an interesting one. Let's go read the synopsis. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with all these are probably be interesting. Live, study, repeat. Tal is a sorcerer in a world where they are killed on sight, traveling with a man charged with carrying out the task. Every night, Tal must pretend to study his spellbook to maintain his disguise as a wizard's apprentice. If the disguise slips and his charade is uncovered, it would be his death. Seeking answers to the mysteries that arose after his parents' murder, Tal must accompany any allies, no matter the risk, to uncover his family's secret. When he wakes up one morning to find himself trapped repeating the same day, he has to overcome his challenges all on his own. I read this story from front to cover that existed in basically a single day, and I haven't read it since. Mostly because this is a loop story, as you can tell at the end here, where the main character repeats the same, in this case, the same day over and over, figuring out what the hell is going on. And his only companion in his endeavors here is a single spell book with some weird connotations and little ideas behind it. You can tell it mentions here that the author is inspired by D&D. It very much feels that way. As the reason I kind of stopped is that this felt like a story that I would enjoy reading in one go. There's something that pulls on me that I'm like, okay, it's very full of cliffhangers just on the nature of this book itself. I also kind of started to get confused, probably because I was running on a little sleep at the point I was ending up this. But for the most part, I think this book is good. I don't think there's any big problems. I'm kind of just waiting. This is one of the weird stories where I don't have the urge to read it. We'll come across a few more later. I don't have a sudden urge to read it. Like, I'm not sitting here like, I really want to. This will be a story I come back to one day when I'm like, you know what? It's time to read this one again. Which falls into the line of my 3 out of 5 on my first 3 out of 5, I think. I guess Path of Ascension falls at 3 out of 5. But I'm gonna give this one my first real 3 out of 5. This is one where I'm just kind of waiting for some more updates, waiting to kind of read through it. Nothing jumps out at me. It's great. I think at this point, this is a story I was kind of looking for. Yeah, there's a specific genre in Royal Road called Loop after the Mother of Learning kind of pushed the whole series, the whole genre forward. And I was looking for some loop stories. I stumbled upon this one, and now I'm kind of waiting. Most of the fun problems come with solving what's like going on with the loop. And we get some cool, this story I definitely think is unique, the way it's written. But it's one that I'm just kind of waiting on. And I will leave it at that, and I'll probably definitely come back to it at some point in the future. Let's talk about Spire Dweller. You might have noticed a theme going forward in some of these stories I read. A lot of Shinchia, a lot of lit RPGs, or fantasy, and don't expect that to change. The first floor of the World Spire has been humanity's home for as long as anyone can remember. With cities and towns scattered across several million square miles, most residents live out their years within protective walls, simultaneously guarded and oppressed by powerful cultivators, people who can utilize ki to perform superhuman feats. The average citizen learns early on to both respect and fear those that keep the deadly spirit beast away. When Samantha receives a quest notification to become a cultivator herself, she goes against her family's wishes and leaves the relative safety of her town to complete it. She knows that becoming a cultivator will change her life, but she has no idea how much the journey will cost her. I think this story is another similar to a Deer spellbook, and you might be confused because some of the other Shinshias I read are like updated right away. I think this one catches my interest still, but where do I put this one? It's weird. Like, I don't have the driving urge to read this one on a week-by-week basis, but I still think it's better than some of the books that are stories I do read on a week-by-week basis, or as soon as it's updated basis. Our main character is cool. I think the biggest thing is the world is super oppressive, as you expect from these Shinshiya kind of novels. And some days, I just don't feel like kind of reading that. But one day I'll definitely pick this back up. I'll probably wake up one day and be like, let's just finish this through. I'll see it updated. There's no real reason why I've kind of stopped. I think it's another one of those where, I kind of want to read a lot in a little bit of time compared to reading it week by week. It's actually fascinating. I'll probably have to make a whole separate video on, later on about reading week by week and so on and so forth, and how it's fascinating, and like, I imagine it is so different from writing a book normally. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give, I had to get all these out of the way. I'm gonna give it a better than most, and it's currently on hold for the most part. So 3 out of 5, waiting for more chapters. Yeah, 5. And then I'll make it a 3.5 out of 5 for my general enjoyment. Just kind of waiting. Nothing too much to say. Salvos. This one is an interesting story behind this one. And an interesting reading journey as well. So Salvos is what I would consider... let's go read the synopsis first. Depending on how long. Okay. The Netherworld is a hellish landscape inhabited only by demons, creatures born from the dark abyss. It is also the only world Salvos knows. Joining the ranks of newborn demons, Salvos is thrown into the violent, anarchy-ruled landscape of that world. To survive, she will have to learn to adapt and evolve. She will gain experience to reach new levels of power. Her curiosity aids her, but her pride could be her fall. It is the nature of the Netherworld to avoid or conquer any threats faced. After all, the law of evolution is the survival of the fittest, and Salvos is a survivor. And perhaps she'll eventually leave the world behind for a better place. But is that what she even wants? Yo, hey Frog, how's it going? So it's been a while, but hopefully we are back to multiple days a week. New month, better streaming schedule. So I want to talk about Melas D, the author, first of all. It's very weird. He has a lot of stories on here, but Salvos is really his one kind of best story out of them all. And for the most part, I enjoyed it. There's going to be a little bit of spoilers in Salvos. I was a patron supporter for a little while, and for a little while I mean a single month. And now I'm gonna, oh no. And now I'm gonna dump this one down right at the back to kind of know where I stand. Where I'm gonna put this one I'm gonna put this one on hold for now. So I'm gonna quickly dive into what makes a lit RPG like cool and why it's an exciting read. And it's basically, I'm reviewing all of my stories right now that I currently am reading. Mostly as something I want to do and I could point to people when we talk about novels and stuff. Salvos is a good story. I'll put that out right there at the first. Lit RPGs are fun because you literally see progression. Like, progression is not some thing the reader has to worry about. You see it in its numbers and can worry about, like, you know, it's a little bit of a crutch in some cases, but it's a cool adaptation of literal progression in a novel in the form of a game. It's super cool. I really enjoy them because of that. And Salvos, between the comedy and the general progression and the way the world works and the way Salvos is as a character for being a demon, it's super good. But recently, there's been a small annoyance that I've come across. So monster, of course, when you get to a certain level, you evolve. It's like like a Pokemon. So we'll talk about Pokemon in a second at some point too. And usually when you, like, as time passes, your character is supposed to get stronger, and when they don't, and it feels very maybe hand and fisted for more comedy, that's kind of when I got annoyed. Basically, a recent decision made our main character weaker for some odd reason, and it's kind of been played off with comedy, and suddenly has kind of been just a weird, what's the word? Weird convergence from the path that we've been laid on, and I lost interest. So basically, I'm gonna hold off on Salvos for a little while. I think I'm gonna go with a progression-based one where it starts out at a 4 out of 5 and then dips to a 3 out of 5. As of most recently, I think it's good still. I think it's just only not my cup of tea anymore. It's kind of weird. I'm so fickle when it comes to reading books, and some decisions can just instantly bring me out of my suspension of disbelief. And Salvos did that with a single chapter, unfortunately. Yes. This novel is top tier. Would highly recommend, on the lines of Beware of Chicken. This one's Ave Shia Gremwai, which is also as so lovingly put here, a very cliche Xianxia harem story. And it takes all those words and slaps you in the face with them. In a world where everything is power, Lu Jin only desires to become great, a great doctor like his father. However, destiny has no end of trouble stored for our hero. Powerful cultivators have their eye on him. A nasty doctor is spreading rumors about his father. A burning man crosses his path, and his father may not be as simple as he suspected. The tale of the strongest doctor begins now. Now, I know some people don't enjoy harems, or Xianxia for how cliche they are, but I can straight up tell you this novel is anything but those. Probably one of the best Xianxia novels I know, like easily top 3. Just the progression, the main character, the subtlety involved, the slow weaving of a giant overarching story, our character being forward but not dumb, as a lot of cultivators tend to be. Doesn't really let power go to his head. He's quite the fascinating main character in the way he approaches things, and all the characters around him are interesting as well. There's not too many dull characters that are kind of left behind. If you're worried about the harem, said that weird. If you're worried about the harem, do not worry, because this one's been going on for 3 years. The updates are slow, but they are very thoughtful. We are going on 100 and some chapters, and the harm is very much limited, I would say. Like, non-existent would be the better word. Would highly recommend this novel. I haven't read it recently, but I'm also a patron supporter most recently. This is a very good story. Would highly recommend. It doesn't start off slow either. A lot of the novels I really enjoy kind of start off with this slow pace. This one does not. So we're gonna get a 5 out of 5 for because I'm a patron supporter, and then also a 5 out of 5 for how great the story is. A very rare 10, I imagine. I imagine there will not be many 10s across the board. Whew. I have miscounted how many novels I'm reading that are updated often. That's the first page, by the way. Okay, now we're getting the stuff that hasn't been updated in a long while. We might have to come back. I did not think this would take so long. We'll talk about this next one. Because there's another interesting one. The Infinite Realms, Monsters, and Legends. It's an interesting one in how I've approached to reading it. The world has ended, and those worthy of it have received this. Oh, this one's very long. Has received the chance for a new life in a new reality. Zack grew in power and thrived in the post-framework world. He became a respected leader, a shining example of what is meant to be good. But as the world ended, he only had one thought: to punish the monster that killed the world long before the framework ended. Yet not even with his incredible power was he able to stand against the world ender. His arrival in the new reality, the Infinite Realm, gives him a chance to grow stronger, to find the monster again, and to make it pay. Ryan survived the chaos after the arrival of the framework by pushing harder than anyone else. He grew in power until he became the most powerful being that had ever walked the planet. But he is hated by the world. Called a monster by all others, the world ender. As the world ends and he steps into a new one, where people stronger than him have lived for centuries, he finds himself lost and without purpose. The only thing that mattered to him had been lost to him long ago. He truly was a monster that people considered him to be, and now he finds himself wondering if this new reality has a place for someone like him. But he never had been one for lying down and dying without a fight. One fell to his power, another one fell, another might follow. This story is pretty hit or miss. It's probably one of the few where I'm gonna actively be annoyed with in this review. So this is a super multi-point of view story. Lots of characters we learn about, and for the most part, they're pretty cool. But the way the two mainest of the characters have been set up leaves a pretty sour taste in my mouth. And I'll quickly explain why. Ryan is our main character to start with. He's this, I think, pretty unique character. Very few characters are like him in his detached sense, and the way he kind of operates, and the way the world, he kind of seems out of it for the most part, but also has pretty strong will to move forward, which leads to a pretty cool character. He's indeed a world ender. And the way he operates in this whole new reality is fairly interesting. And our other main character, Zack, can go jump off a cliff. So the main reason I'm gonna leave this story as a 2.5 out of 5, or this is a 3 out of 5 for how often I read it. And a 2.5, 5, a 2.5, 5, a 2.5 out of 5. Unless the point of view is Ryan. It's an interesting story the way this one's been written. So we start off learning a lot about Ryan and the way he works and operates in this new world that he's part in. But we quickly pop over to a different point of view of Zack, who is kind of starts off as flashbacks of what happened to him, why is Ryan the way he is, so on and so forth. And Ryan and Zack are foils to each other, where Ryan is the big bad and Zack is supposed to be the main hero. And so the author writes it as such, where we're supposed to not enjoy Zack because he's the bad guy in Ryan's sense, even if it's not the truest to the world, truest to that. But he writes, you kind of are supposed to not like Zack at the beginning, or at least it feels like you're not supposed to like Zack, and I definitely did not like him as well. He's a very much your normal Japanese main character hero. It's kind of how Zack is, where Ryan is this weird menagerie of various personalities kind of fused together to form this pretty unique point of view. But as the story progresses, particularly in like what I'll call the second act, our main point of view switches from Ryan to Zach. And I just don't like Zach. I don't like his character. He's very boring. But I love Ryan's character, which is a telltale to how crazy this story is, or even... let's also pull these up. Or even where I don't enjoy one whole character that is a main character, like I'm still willing to read it. Yeah, probably one of the strangest ones that I have on my list. As you can see, my last chapter I read was Ryan, and it's been a little bit since. Definitely, I think there's something to be had. I think I would recommend this novel, and if you do dislike Zach just as much as I do, you can still keep reading on. But if you enjoy his character type, then, you know, that is pretty solid. You got quite the strong novel to go with, but for the most part, I'm not the biggest fan of him. I'm not realizing how much I read. This is a problem. So we'll do the Houndsman, which is a base building lit RPG, which is a fascinating story. Actually, probably one of the coolest characters, I think. A lot of the reviewers mention him that it's kind of like following an autistic character, and you definitely get that feeling. He's definitely very strange, and it's unusual, which makes it interesting. It's actually, I read this novel 3 separate times, and I finally stuck with it on the third, and I'm glad I have. So let's read the synopsis real quickly, and I'll get to my general thoughts. The Fae are sick of humankind violating their treaties. The wild armies are taking to the field, and the world is at war. After serving 2 terms in the Iron's Army Building Division, Flint Woodstone is done with it all. He wants nothing more than to find a remote settlement, work as a guard or a builder, and find a wife. Flint doesn't care about filling his remaining nodes with skill stones or wasting his life looking for a class. Wildbloods like him aren't destined for greatness. Flint's plans go out the window when the universe sends him a life quest. Reawaken the sleeping fort, protect the village of Lie's slumber, give the champion of equilibrium time to grow. Saying no wasn't an option when the quest involved the word champion. I think this is probably one of the most unique novels, both from a main character standpoint and a pretty cool literary RPG sense. Basically, each path has nodes, you can fill it with power, and you get upgrades as you use them. It's pretty standard, but a unique little twist on it. Especially considering that the character is different. He connects better with animals, hence Houndsman. He's likes animals more than people for the most part. And definitely has its rises and falls with that kind of idea behind it. It's quite the good novel. Like I said, I dropped this one 3 separate times. I'm finally sticking with it on the 3rd. And I think this is solid. Would highly recommend. I think this is a novel where I would, take your time. Read it, take a little break, come back to it. And this one, it feels the most uncomfortable because the main character is strange and foreign in a sense, but it's a cool little romp, and the world is fascinating, and the way it operates is cool. There's surprises and shocks along the way of like how the factions operate as they more interact with our main character, along with how he grows. Evolution is a big portion of lit RPGs and how the character evolves as they reach certain milestones like 50 and 100. And this kind of follows that same, or as they complete quests. And this follows that same aspect. It is very interesting because it's different, but the same in some sense. Where do I lie on this one? I think I'm gonna go at a 4 out of 5 out of my enjoyment now. And I now read it on a weekly basis when it does update. Or, which is once a week. Highly recommend. Take some time on this one, I think. Or you can blast through it like I did once I read through it. Breaker of Horizons is an interesting one. Actually, Am I a patron supporter of this one now? Sorry, I've suddenly... I calculated how much $5 a month is for patron and realized that it amounts to basically nothing. And I've been a little more willing to spend when I go on Patreon stuff. Yo, hey Extra, how is it going? We are back. There's not too many streams to catch in the past, so glad you can make it to this one. Today we are just reviewing all the stories that I'm reading. Because it's something I want to do, and it's something I hope to point people to when we talk about books and shit I read in the normal streams. And as you can see, we are making our way through. Oh, and there's a lot more to go. I think I'll do this page 1, and we'll kind of leave it at that. Maybe one day we'll come back to the other stuff. So I'm not even halfway there yet. Maybe I'll put on the boosters. Breaker of Horizons. This one's weird because I read it every week, but I don't. So I do read it every time, or I read it every time it updates. But I don't particularly think the story's good. We're gonna put this one straight in the middle. I guess 3 would be more in the middle. Yeah, 3 is more in the middle. This is a average. So it's a. Let me go read the synopsis before I forget. A system apocalypse from the invader's perspective. A Monster Evo story with cultivation. Nick has been selected, chosen to adventure out to a new world and help the system break the natives into submission. To become an invader of worlds, fighting for the integration of a planet called Earth. Selected to leave his body and become a monster. Selected to live or die on his own wits, his own strength. This is one of a recent pop-up stories in Rising, which is only about a month old, I'd say. Or, it only is a month old. It's good, it's cool. There's just something about it that doesn't. It's a Shian literary RPG novel. As you can see with the millions of tags. It's an isekai. It's reincarnation. I don't know why this novel doesn't speak to me in any sense that I like I recommend the novel, but doesn't speak to me in a sense of like, I don't know. Mostly because the story, I think this is because some chapters of the story are so cool. Some little acts are so cool, but some others are just okay. I think that's where we end up. Some are like, didn't really enjoy this chapter. It's one of the few books where I'm like, I didn't really enjoy this chapter, but some chapters had the potential to be so good that I want to read some more. I think this one is a good novel to binge. I think that's a big portion of this one. Reading it all in a short setting or a lot of chapters at a time feels really nice because the progression keeps going on. But I think this is one of the few novels that falters from a weekly update kind of basis. And I'll kind of leave it at that. My favorite. The title that is 10 million characters long. Or An Outcast in Another World. Subtitle, is insanity a racial trait? I think that's reviewing amazing cultivation. No, we can go look at it real quick though. It'll be a nice little teeny break to not. Oh, please. Which one is it? Can I search reviews? Oh, is it? It might be a. I assume that might be a YouTuber. Oh, you can see that shit. Get this out of here. Is there anything important about that? What was his general thoughts on? I'm not gonna watch the whole video. It's 30 minutes.
Hey, people.
Yo, hello. I can go read the comments quickly. I think my biggest problem with Amazing Cultivation Simulator is it's just there's really only one way to play it, and after you've played it for a lot, it's very samey. I definitely enjoyed my 200 some hours, and I would definitely give it a positive review, but the end game is quite meh. I'm not the most excited about it. Also because there's not too many mods. English mods. Even the mods I have now just make life easier. I would recommend it, but I just can't get behind it too much anymore. Let's go read this one. Please. I mean, I started this channel on Amazing Cultivation Simulator. I think it's just a problem more with the genre and how it works. So it's very hard to balance one tier being so much stronger than the other tier. It's like the Path of Exile of RimWorld. There's a lot to learn, but once you learn it, if nothing new interesting ever pops up, and the story's like okay, or the game is okay. Let's read this one. On the first day, he almost died. On the second day, he almost died. On his third, he began to notice a worrying trend and almost died. Crushing loneliness, danger around every corner, all of that is being part of his daily routine. That's fine. He'll carve out a place in this world with his bare hands if necessary. He'll survive, and then he'll thrive, whether anyone wants him or not. I think the author warns us this one could be pretty dark. I'll be honest. I now read this one on a weekly basis. The title could use some reworking. The title is the thing that kept me from this novel for the longest time, because there's so much. There's too many words on this title. I could go into hours about people not. So far, all of our stories have had pretty, besides maybe one or two, had pretty solid synopsis summaries. But there are a ton out there that are just garbage. This one's pretty cool. The biggest complaint is our main character dives headlong into danger just heedlessly, and maybe needlessly in some cases. But for the most part, I didn't think about that. I usually come back and read reviews after to see if I'm getting a similar experience or not. Nothing popped out at me of this guy being crazy. Besides the title. It's a pretty cool journey. The world is fascinating. The backstory of the world is fascinating. The lore ingrained in the story is pretty fascinating. Our main character is pretty cool. I can't think of anything too negative. And the whole way it progresses as a story is pretty cool. Like I said, overall enjoy the story. Out of the negative reviews that say the character is too dangerous, I don't ever feel in that aspect. I never feel like he's going out of his way to be a suicidal maniac. But I think this one, we'll put this one at a rare 3.5 out of 5 for my general enjoyment. It's better than average, but nothing too fantastic where I'm like gushing about it. It's good. Would I recommend it? Yes. Are some of the reviews probably unlike mine? Yeah, definitely. Realm Shake. This one's a cool one. This is one I'm surprised isn't more popular. So one of the things I do when I go through new stories is I look at ones that catch my eye in terms of the follower count, because I am a savage and at this point really enjoy good novels, and you know, the more people that enjoy the novel doesn't directly correlate to how good it is, but it at least derives a basic sense of how good the novel is as a very base. And usually when I'm looking at new books and such, that's the thing that catches my eye. So this one, I'm surprised it's not more popular. This one is, let's read the synopsis here. Norse mythology, D&D, high fantasy progression literary RPG. Rhonda is a noble giant. a huge savage beauty learning to become a ranger and a chiefess. But 5 centuries after a terrible war eliminated the noble giant's civilization, Rhonda wakes up alone on a runic ritual site far from her home. Her culture is plundered, erased, and nearly forgotten. Terrible beasts roam the land, and small beings are taking over. Stranger yet, there's a mystical mechanism revealing to Rhonda her class, attributes, perks, star power, and more. It's the star system. And its master could be an eldritch thing covering the world, unknown to all except the giantess herself. Follow Rhonda and her friends on an epic conquest to collect star power, go berserk on their enemies, and make an impact that no one can ignore. The noble giant civilization may have fallen, but it's Rhonda's birthright to shake the realm. Like I said, this one is really good. I'm surprised it's not more popular. I do read this one to start whenever it updates. I think it has a slow start, like a more than usual slow start. Or at least I didn't get, when I first was reading this novel, I didn't get any feelings of like, I should read this one a ton, and this one's so great. But more recently, I think this one starts out a 3 out of 5, and then grows to a 4 out of 5. This one it's quite good. I really enjoy this one. The main character, I think, starts off maybe a bit generic, but as time progresses, like, really falls into her role, especially as we get more I think as more characters are being introduced, I'm enjoying this novel more and more. Also, it's like a actual monster. Like, our main character is it's so weird from a perspective of a main character being a giant, like a legitimate, like, D&D, like, 20-foot tall giant that can step, maybe more than, like, 50-foot tall, that can just step on people. And the whole way how she operates is so vastly different. It's a fascinating story. And my throat is starting to let me go get a sip of water quickly. Okay, we're gonna kind of speed through some of the stuff, the ones that I'm not super into. And we're going to continue on with the good ones. The last ship in Sishola. I'm currently on hold. This will be a weekly update. Honestly, this one's like a 4.5 out of 5 in terms of maybe not enjoyment in this sense, but just in the way this style is written. Probably the most unique novel I have on this entire thing. But I'm currently waiting for more chapters. This one is I will deal with it in bulks for sure. Most because gotta be in the mood. Super unique. It's like the old English version of She and Shia is the best way to put this one. It has a very it's so cool. It doesn't tell you anything. Many novels have the problem of telling and not showing. This novel shows shit out of stuff. To the point where I'm like, am I dumb? This novel makes me feel stupid, and in a good way. Highly recommend. Truth Singer, a lit RPG loop, also on hold. It's slow. It's very, very slow burn. And I think that's the biggest problem. It feels like not a lot has progressed, so I'm kind of waiting for probably to double the chapter length. Is another time loop with lit RPG. Kind of on hold for now. Overall, I think average, in terms of my enjoy it. Sexy Space Babes, another one that's on hold. A surprisingly good story for its title and its contents. Yes, this one is one of the few that does have sexual content. Where'd my music go? Hello? You had to stop at this point? Why did it pause? Actual story involved in this. I think that's kind of why I stopped. I was interested not in the story as much as the other content, but as it progressed, I'm kind of, just waiting on this one. Nothing too crazy. A Melody of Mana, though. Would recommend this one. I think you gotta be in the mood, and then you'll have to grow to enjoy the rest of the story. Yeah, the quotation plot. But the actual plot's fascinating. And one day I'll get back to reading this. Melody of Mana. This one I'll put this one on, no. Oh, I did write that. We'll put this one on the list here, because I think it deserves it. I think that's kind of what I'll start doing from now. We'll waylay over some of the other stuff. And the ones that I think are really good, I will read. We're born into another world as Alana. A former resident of Earth must now try to make her way. While heroes fight great monsters and kings war, the peasants suffer and die, unable to save themselves. What is a girl born into a poor family to do except learn and work as hard as she can just to make it through? And that's what she'll do. Strive all she can against an unfair and uncaring world of dark lords, dungeons, uncaring nobles, heroes, and magic. Come along as she uses magic and wit and a bit to survive. Probably not the best summary, but short, simple, and to the point. This one's a lot of the novels I read are power stomp fantasies where our character starts off weak and grows super strong. And the world gets stranger and more complicated, and bad guys get stronger to counteract it. This one's a very much slice of life, a darker slice of life that I think is unusual for me. It's it's a story that I don't kind of read too often. Slice of life doesn't interest me in many cases, but this one's cool. The magic is very much D&D with a little bit of a twist, where instead of like spells grow, it's very slow, it's very methodical. It's the daily life of a person who's gained magic and how to operate with that. I read it every week. I think this one is for sure 4 out of 5 in terms of my general enjoyment. I think this one really deserves it. It's super cool. It's not groundbreaking in any sense, but it does what it does very well. Forged Destiny also deserves a mark on here. Please don't actually hit my wrong chapter. Keep snagging the books. Forged Destiny is a Xianxia with a female lead, which surprisingly, you know what? It's been weird. I've been picking up more female leads, and they're generally like pretty enjoyable. And I say that like it's unexpected, but like I'm enjoying them more than like male character perspective, to be honest. In the Celestial Empire, a land ruled by immortals and stalked by spirits and beasts, a young girl from the slums of an unimportant city is found to have the talent. In the great sect of Argent Peak, she will take her first unsteady steps upon the way. Can she learn not to only survive, but thrive on her journey? This one is a 3 out of 5 in terms of how often I read it, because I'm waiting. I like these ones to build up as well. This is a nice journey in a Xianxia world that is Xianxia and operates in such a way, and more of a study. The character studies more and makes it interesting. I think a lot of the novels that are of the lesser quality kind of struggle at that point to make the character interesting, with just delving into the Tao and finding their way and all that jazz, that general jazz. But this one strives to the top. It's a nice slow progression. It makes sense. Nothing seems crazy. She doesn't have that's probably one of the big things. She doesn't have like this inherent luck that a lot of the stories have. It's just good. Like it's crazy how the scale has grown through time. Yeah, it's one of the ones where I enjoy reading all of the... You'll see that all the chapters are named, in a sense, of these kind of arcs, per se. And I kind of try to read all those arcs at once, just so I can get the whole thing at one time. But this one's a 4 out of 5 from enjoyment. It's just I have to wait for everything to build up a little bit. Some other fun stuff. Yeah, it is. Which is fascinating. I think that there's one other story I have that follows that same pathos where it's like a I can't remember, but like space board, space something like that. There's one other story that I've read that follows a very similar path as such. And sometimes depending on how the audience can like interact and influence things, super cool, super good story, highly recommend. Nice slow progression. I think it's one of the few times I'll say that the slow feels good. I'm not a big fan of slow burn novels, but this one works really, really well. Marco a Fool I read every week, 4 out of 5. Or as soon as I keep saying every week, but translate that to I read as it updates. Okay, no, not super crazy first. After his parents died, Alex Roth had a plan: become a wizard. Through hard work, he was accepted into the world's greatest university of wizardry, but fate had another plan. On his 18th, he is marked as one of his kingdom's 5 heroes, chosen to fight the land's greatest enemies. But his brand is the Fool, worst of the marks. Rather than die or serve the other heroes like fools in the past, he packs up his little sister, his childhood friend, and her Cerberus, and flees for the university in hopes of refuge, magic, and to unveil the truth about his land's evil. There's one problem. The Mark tries to ruin magic while enhancing skills outside divinity, combat, and spellcraft. That is, unless he can learn to exploit the hell out of it. And he does. And it's fascinating. Now, this is a classic character of like of a support character who doesn't want to be a support, and working around to make that work as a main role in a story. It's a fascinating delve into how to bend rules and make things work in such a way for the benefit of himself. Also, all the while learning more about whatever this mark of the Fool that he has is and what it truly means, and how some interactions along the way have gone awry and caused some pains in the butts, while also like a journey of youth, like growing up within with his sister and his childhood friend, learn to be expressive and expose himself to secrets, and this whole journey is fascinating. I think it takes a little bit to get its feet under it, but once it does, particularly, I think the intro is that not stumbling point, but like slow walk. But once we pass the intro into like what feels like the main portion of the story, where we start doing all sorts of stuff with the mark and learning more about it, it really kicks off. I'm gonna put 3.5 out of 5, mostly because the slow starts a little bit. I know it can be a little bit hard on some people, but quite the good story. And if you read up to where it's at now, it is fascinating. Also, here's a cute picture of the oh, you can't see it. Shucks. Well, you get to see one person. You don't get to see the cute Cerberus. The Tentacles Tavern. I might read this one every week. Is this who let me go. Who? Who is this? I think. Okay. I read his story, The Dungeon Hound, and saw this. Another one that's more plot than plot. Definitely has some sexual content in it. I do read this one on a week-by-week basis, unfortunately. Mostly because it's weird. I don't read it for the plot. I read it for the weirdness. Not like the actual... I read it for the actual plot and the weirdness, and not like the other plot. Would I recommend it? I don't know. I don't know about that one. If you're into it, I would recommend it. If you're not, it's weird. Dude, this one's super cool. This Web's a Secret. Let's read the synopsis real quickly. And I'm very annoyed at where we're at right now. Not for bad reasons, but because I want to know what's happening next. Mana artists rule the world, and the path to power is a well-kept secret, restricted to state-approved programs and universities. Akiri Zeller will never be a mana artist. not if society has its way. She's a bronze with no money, no family, and no connections. But technology is advancing too. And to a skilled hacker like Akiri, no secret is safe forever. The dark web holds the secret, or the key. Wow, let me reread that. The dark web holds the key to true power, advancement, and her only chance at survival. Another Shia, another female lead. This one's pretty good. I'm gonna throw this one on my list here. I read this one. 5. I think is another problem. This one has slow updates, which isn't an inherent negative to the story, but I do wish I want more. This one mixes a good of like character development and progression with a weird and different world as other characters like let the world kind of expand and poke holes into this society that's been structured here. Definitely fascinating. Definitely wish it updated more often. I think this one is a 4 out of 5 in terms of where we're in terms of my general enjoyment. I think I could see some gripes that people have with the story because it is Shia to its roots, and the roots of Shia are black and dirty and have never been cultivated in. Because it's frustratingly brutal in some cases. Yeah. That is true. Hey, Damien, how's it going? You definitely feel the repressed society in this world. And it's cool. Population cultivation. I'm gonna kind of skip this one. It's good. I enjoy it. I do read it each week, but I think it's average. And mostly because my throat is starting to get pretty tired. I want to hit the big ones. Azariah Healer. Basically, this story is another one of those. I'm gonna let you know right out the back. It is 5 out of 5 because I do support Patreon. It's a 5. I have to make a caveat here. Starts out of a 3 out of 5. After intro 5 out of 5. Let me go read the synopses here for you. Oh god, it's so long. A new world. Our main character is Ilya. There's a grand quest. Actually, what is it? Alright, actually it doesn't look like this part matters. A new world with nearly unlimited possibilities. A status, classes, magic, and monsters sound good. I'll make the note there. Well, for Ilya, it didn't come quite as expected for her other... Did I have a stroke? Status, class, magic, monsters. Sounds good. Well, for Ilya, it didn't come quite as expected for some other protagonists, nor was there a king or god to welcome her. The grand quest, well, she might figure that out someday. But for now, a new world with new foods is prize enough. Her fists at the ready, she's prepared to be punched and get punched however long it takes, and however many limbs she has to regrow to do so. I spiced that up a little bit. I'd say the intro is about the first 20 chapters. And you might think that's a lot, but there's 700 and some chapters. So this novel took me a week to read, and I did not stop reading the entire time. I read this one, I think this is my second time attempting to read, or maybe no, even my third time attempting to read. To be honest, the intro could use a lot of work. The comedy is a little dated. I'll quickly go through here. This was written 3 years ago, or it started writing 3 years ago. And at the time, a lot of the lit RPGs were in their fledgling states, and you can tell. Let's see, I'm remembering what happens. I think the intro kind of lasts. Yeah, I'd say around 20-ish. It starts picking up. Like when I say it grows to 5, I really mean it does pick up. The intro has been edited, but there's still some grammar issues, and the comedy is kind of bland. But at some point, it kind of the weird kind of comedy feeling kind of dips off, and then this giant cool growth explodes. Our character is awesome. The lit RPG feels cool and progressive. She's badass. The combat scenes are fascinating and cool. All the characters build up, and as of most recently, this giant journey that she goes on is not necessarily coming to an end, but converging. Of all the characters that we've met through our journeys are all coming together for this one super event. It's so cool. This reminds me of Primal, the Primal Hunter, for the reason it follows a very similar path of the character goes on their own journey and suddenly becomes world shaping in a sense. And it goes from a weak to strong, and then your strong character becomes a focal point for the world instead of just a passing note along the way, which is fascinating. I really love it because instead of it being about our main character and her growing stronger, it slips from that to how the world interacts and growing your civilization and making a place for herself. It's one of the few novels where I literally could read all the different points of view. Points of view don't swap often in this novel, but they're the most fascinating things and are a ton of fun. Would highly recommend it. It's gonna take you a long time to read this novel. And once you get past the beginning, it is a journey that is well worth it if you enjoy literary RPGs. And I do support Patreon on this one. Would highly recommend. Super good. Really enjoyed this one. I'm glad someone recommended it to me. I don't remember who, but it was a few weeks ago. Sorry. And I was like, you know what? They're recommending it. I'll give it a shot. Like I was like, I remember this one because I remember the first few jokes, and I was like, this feels really bad. But you know what? I'll continue with it, and I did, and I'm glad I did. Let's see. Great Course Paradox. Interesting. It's a loop monster story, which is cool. I read for a few chapters ago. There's just something about it that, like, I guess it's the same for a spell book, Dear Spell Book, earlier on, where I'm like, I have to be kind of in the mood for this kind of book. Would recommend it. We're gonna kind of skip over it because my throat's starting to go out on me. Rend is currently on hold as you haven't read it in 6 months. It's an interesting story. Our character. So I talked about a psychopath character before. This character feels even more psychopathic, mostly because that's the way it's supposed to be written, and it just doesn't sit well too with me. I'm gonna skip over He Who Fights with Monsters because unfortunately the early chapters aren't there anymore. Something that happens is if you put your book on Kindle's website, you can only allow 10% of your book to exist elsewhere. So authors will right here convert it to a book and then have to cut it down to 10%. So you'll have to go buy it. Would I recommend this one? Yeah, it's good. I read it every week, and I've been reading it for about a year now. The main character is cool. Common complaint is everyone starts turning into the same kind of character as the main character, which I could kind of get behind. But I will let you, if you do not enjoy the main character, you will not enjoy this novel, is basically the way it works. Overall, I'm enjoying it. We'll skip Blue Core because we'll have to come back to Blue Core because it's sad. A Journey in Darkness. This one deserves me to read the synopsis. He Who Fights with Monsters deserves as well, but because most of the book isn't there, I can't wholeheartedly recommend it. Journey of Darkness is the story of a human girl who finds herself displaced far, far away from home, in a new world filled with wonders to discover and perils to overcome in her very own way. Waking up in a cave in her pajamas will only be the start of her problems. Will she find her way out? Maybe. Will she get eating while searching for it? Probably. Is she gonna be quite unhappy with the menu offered? Absolutely. It kind of has a very comedic tone to this synopsis. It is not, this one's not comedy at all. I very rarely am bothered by gore, profanity, and traumatizing content, but, you know, I think it's a good note to make. I think my only problem with this novel is it starts off very strong, and it has a cool sense of growth for our main character. I do read this one. Let me go. We're gonna review it. I'm gonna put it on our list here. I do read it on the week. I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5 for my general enjoyment. I don't like the arc we're in is my biggest problem. I think it's still good. I don't like how the arc has kind of gone. It goes on it's weird. It goes on a very solo progressive story for the most part of like discovering the place around her and all the things that can very easily kill her, and getting stronger. And then we kind of get to this weird, like, not like weird interaction, but weird arc that I'm calling this. And I don't know. I'm not enjoying the arc too much. It feels too human in this weird world. I guess that's kind of the point, but yeah, the synopsis isn't as good. The story is definitely better than the synopsis for sure on this one. Yeah, like I said, it's got this comedic light tone. It has no comedy tag. It is not comedy. It is very brutal. And it was fascinating. I definitely recommend it just based on the beginning. And then if you enjoy the recent stuff, I think, you know, good on you. I'm not, but so here's the weird thing. I don't really enjoy the current arc we're on, but I'm willing to stick with it so much because I want to know what's next, kind of thing. We're gonna skip Small Chess are fine too, because this is just a rewrite right now. The claimant is Bob. A cool name for a cool story. This one is a 5 out of 5 because I'm a patron supporter. It's weird because the claimant is Bob is another story written by this author who I've read, and you can see I haven't read this story in almost a year and a half. But this other story I'm enjoying a lot. So the claimant is Bob deserves a read. Because it's short and sweet and to the point. The world of Nile, with its monsters, its night, and its mildly psychopathic gods. Come and see. A soul flees and a soul arrives, blessed by luck. Will she survive? Will she thrive? Will she become a calamity? After all, luck is such a fickle thing. Lit RPG, cool main character. Different main character, cool world buildings. I think still in its infant stages, for sure. From what we can expect. Like I said, I patroned this one very quickly because I really enjoyed the process, and it gave me a shit ton of chapters for a few bucks. The progression system is nice. The main characters are brutal and different, and because of that, it makes them cool. And the way the skills work and her progression is fascinating and world-changing. And also because this novel likes to sometimes kick you in the teeth, and I like when I get my teeth broken. I would highly recommend. It's not like stellar, like crazy, like some of the other novels I have, but definitely 4 out of 5 in my books. I don't even remember A Journey of Black and Red. It's a vampire story. Like I said, it has been it has been almost a year and a half, or almost a year and 75% since I've last read it. One day I'll probably get to reading it, but I have no recollection. I'll have to restart the story. I'm going to Die in This Game-like Dimension. Another title that makes me throw up in my mouth. But it deserves, like, it's another one that deserves a struggle here. This one's a 3 out of 5 in terms of how often I read it, which is I wait for this one to also build up. I'll read the synopsis. This one is, the reason I like this one, it's unusual. The way the world works, the way the level up system works, and the things that the author uses to show that is so fascinating and different. When mysterious portals start opening up around the world at large events, swallowing everybody, you think that would warrant some kind of danger. Kind of danger pay when you have to sell hot dogs at Comic-Con, right? No, of course not. What are the odds of that happening here out of all the big events in the world? Well, Emma was pretty good at beating the odds when it came to shitty luck. Now she's stuck in a strange dimension where the normal rules don't seem to apply, together with a costume crowd who seem strangely happy about this whole thing. At least until the first people start dying. This one has sexual content in it? This warning almost seems dumb. Is there sexual content? I don't really think there is. This might just be a safety one. It has this warning here. It is not a focus at all. So don't worry if you're turned off by that one. The reason I wait for this novel is because it is a slow burn and character progression sense. Like, the whole story itself progresses at a cool pace. It's unusual. It's different. It's strange. The world is brutal but curious inducing. Yeah. I don't know where the it's been a little bit since I've read it less, but I don't remember anything like that. But it's nothing like groundbreaking. It's also a reason why I wait. So I'm gonna give my general enjoyment like average. The positives are the sweet world and the way the literary RPG aspect works. The characters are solid and nothing to complain from them. You know what? There has been. I'm remembering it now. It's been like a month. I think it was one time, but some of the character progression is quite slow and quite frustrating in some aspects, which is why I like to wait, because then I can kind of get an answer resolved instead of having to ruminate with it. Still, good story, cool, would recommend it. Sometimes it's frustrating. We're getting to the point where like the names are starting to. This one's weird. I don't know how I feel, but I'll read this one real quickly. In the kingdom of Faris, mages are not born, but made. Through the might of both magic and arms, Faris has grown to become the most powerful nation in the known world. Born into this world, a young boy named Vane was taken in as a child and trained as an advisor for a noble family. His life was set, and he would live and die as their servant, never knowing anything else. However, a vision of his future reveals a terrible truth. His destiny was to become the strongest mage in Faris, only the fallen battle before 30, fighting invaders from beyond the ocean. This leaves Vane at a crossroads. Will he follow the path or die in servitude? Will he see his life cut short fighting a fruitless battle? Or will he defy fate and forge himself into the greatest mage the world has seen? How do I feel about this novel? I do read it. It's a rewrite. I never read the initial. I do read it as it updates. This novel doesn't stick with me is the biggest part. Like all the memories are coming back now I think about it. But it's okay. It's another one of those weird ones where like I find enjoyment out of reading it, but nothing stands out to me as new or unique. 2.5 out of 4. Let's make that 5. I can recommend it, but like, I don't know. This one doesn't speak to me in the same way as some of the other books and novels that I do. We close yet? Oh my god, we're not close. Is there any of that? So many. Okay, let's go back. I'm gonna start hurrying through the rest of these now because my throat is starting to hurt. Grand game, interesting. I have some problems with the story, but I'm still willing to read it as it updates. I'd say give it a shot, and if you don't have any... It starts out very good, then we meet people, and it kind of sours a little bit, and then the arc kind of ends, and now I'm kind of interested again. This has been a roller coaster. Dang it, dude. Path of the Dragon Mage deserves a little note on my little story here. This one's a cool story. I really enjoy this one. Let's go read. There shouldn't be too many more of these. So I'm starting to get to the ones that don't update nearly as often. Born magically talentless, Prince Corvus is an embarrassment to the royal family and is removed from succession. However, he still has a chance to win back his throne. The next man or woman to hatch a dragon automatically becomes the ruler. Each member of the royal family is gifted with a dragon egg, but it is the work of a lifetime to hatch it. The first time Corvus touches his dragon egg, he receives an odd notification. He has found a soulbound item and is tasked with an epic quest to hatch it, but only if he can walk the winding path of the dragon mage. Armed with notifications, skill increases, and levels only he can see, Corvus is determined to hatch his dragon. A good story. I'm gonna just pop this one right out of 4 out of 5. The main character is pretty interesting. The journey has so far been perilous and danger, and it's one of the rare novels where I feel like the main character could just die at any point. Would recommend this one. It's cool. The level system is cool. The way he learns and the way he operates is realistic, which sometimes I'm willing to get rid of that realistic way that our main characters operate, because I like the general story. But this one's pretty realistic. The journey feels real. The growth feels real. The people feel real. And the people are assholes as well. Makes for an interesting journey. Evil Eye Hex Collar is one of the few that I'm just not interested in at this time. And I went through like 2 weeks ago and dipped out all the ones that I've dropped. This one's kind of on the edge. It started off really good, and I kind of lost interest as there were some cool plot points that started to happen, and then it kind of fell off. Magic Girl Carry Apocalypse System is a fascinating name for a fascinating novel. I do read it as it updates, but there's only 18 chapters, and the chapters are slow. So I'm gonna just, for my general thoughts, recommend it. It's interesting, but there's not enough, I think, to fully review it. Peculiar Soul follows the very same route as, where's she at? As The Last Ship in So. Makes me feel dumb as I read it, because there's all sorts of nuance that I'm not used to in novels, because I'm such a lit RPG, battle junkie kind of reader kind of guy, that the nuance sometimes goes over my head, even though I like it. And that's why it's on here, and that's why it's going to stay on here, even if it takes me, another 2 or 3 months to finally get back to reading it. Very interesting, very unusual. Very similar with this next one as well. The Greco-Roman Scientia, a weird dive into the Greek lore, Greek and Romantic lore, Romanian lore, and put in a weird cultivation novel. It's fascinating. It's weird. It's crazy. But it's also one of the ones that I'm kind of waiting for more chapters, and I need to go through it slowly to get the full meaning of it. Garthian Loop. It's one that's another one on hold, kind of like Evil Eye Hex Collar. I don't know how I feel about this one. It's a time loop story, but it doesn't feel like it, which is weird. A Dream of Wing and Flames. It's not quite like Peculiar Souls in the Virtuous Sons, but it's almost there. It's like a in between of like weirdly high quality and like nuance into its words, and the choices of words are used in such a way. Like there's no, like some of these novels just throw words at you to explain things, and some authors use words to construct meaning in certain ways. That's the way these novels feel. And I have to be in the mood to sit down, slowly read through and comprehend. And at this moment, I am currently not that way. Super Evolution Awakening went on a hiatus itself. If we go look at this one really quickly. Took about a 6-month break. But as soon as it came back, I was reading it on a week-by-week basis. So this one's a 4 out of 5 there. I'm We're almost there. And there's a few caveats I want to mention at the end here. Super Evolution Awaken, it deserves. Cool story, fascinating system. The bad guys are bad, and the good guys are fun. I think the biggest way is how the world works in this one. Not 2.5, 3.5. It's good. There's not much because took a little break, but the chapters are long, the characters are cool, the way the world works is fascinating. The way our main character operates is real, his struggles are real, and this novel could get out of hand with how powerful our main character can be. And that's the cool part. There is some crazy potential growth for our main character, and I think him getting to that point and the journey to get to that point is probably the coolest part of this novel. It's the one I'm the most excited for. Digital Marine. This novel also deserves a note on here. One, because I support its patron, so congrats. But two, probably the coolest war novel I know. And it's a war novel mixed with a literary RPG. I'll read this part here, because it deserves it. The class divide still exists in the future and has gotten much worse. There are many different types of worlds, from the paradise worlds where everyone is immortal, to the resource-depleted, war-torn planets where every day is a struggle just to live. Freya O'Malley grew up on Earth, the worst of the war-torn planets, and wants nothing more than to leave. With few options, Freya joins the Federation Marines, but unlike the past, it's a struggle to earn enough enlistment points to stay in. With the prize of a citizenship on a paradise world at stake, competition is fierce. Every week is a new war. Can Freya earn enough points in the constant warring of the Marines to modify her body and mind to stay competitive? Can a girl from the wrong planet make it against those who have all the advantages? A cool story. War is a hard thing to comprehend from like the military hierarchy, and adding in the literary RPG and how that whole thing progresses is hard to do. And there's been at least 3 novels that I've read that have tried to promote this kind of like military aspect and like make real world analogies to it with how like it operates and functions. It's a hard sell. It's very easy to be slightly pulled out of my suspension of disbelief. I think that's the terminology. When the military hierarchy does things that just doesn't make sense. Like one of the novels I read recently had the military like jail an asset for some stupid thing. Like it was willing to withhold military assets or military information to like a secret special force that needed this information in fear of like it bringing down like morale or something. And it brought me out of it entirely, because that'd be so dumb that you wouldn't give at least the leaders of your groups, like the sergeants and lieutenants, like this information. So it brought me out of it, and I just couldn't get back to the novel. But this one does things well. I've never been like, ah man, why did, like, okay, sometimes the higher up makes a wrong decision, but it's then their fault and they take the blame for it. In other books, they don't do that. So the Digital Marines, I'm on the Patreon. It's a cool novel. The growth is there. The delve into these worlds and how this world functions and the universe functions is fascinating and cool. And our main character is a straight out badass that can kick your ass. Highly recommend it. There's a lot there. It's slow updates, but I'm willing to pay for the slow updates. What is the quest for the... We're getting to the point where now I'm like... I have this problem. What is this one? Where it takes me a second to remember the novel sometimes. This one's weird. I remember this one now. This one's weird. I think I'll read this one as it updates, but I kind of skimmed this one just to see where it's going. Snake Report, haven't read in 2 years. Not by fault of my own, but most recently it's been updating again. I can't remember too much about this novel in all honesty. It's been so long. Blessed Time, it finished its first, you can see epilogue here. So it finished its first book, and second book, and now it's on its third book. Pretty good. Like this one. Super cool. Has some ups and downs. Sometimes characters feel weird, but would recommend it. Basically, it's another time loop story. With lit RPG, and overall pretty solid, interesting, but not to make anything super note. Tower of Somnus though, as I mentioned with Digital Marines, it's kind of like that, but on the underside instead of like the overside. This one deserves me putting in notes here, because what do I think about this one? 4.5 out of 5. Tower of Somnus, I do read on a week-by-week basis, so 4 out of 5 there. And then this is another 4.5 out of 5. Tower of Somnus is really good. It is a fascinating world with a interesting main character and plot that takes time to you soak in the plot. When humanity first encountered alien life, we were judged and found wanting. The Galactic Conscious interviewed our leaders and subject us to a battery of psychological tests to determine our progress as a society. They found us to be selfish, wasteful, impulsive, and boorish neighbors. Earth was blockaded, and our collective encounter with an extrasolar neighbor rapidly faded from memory. All they left behind was a hypercom relay and a handful of subscriptions to a massively multiplayer game that participants played in their sleep. The Conscious said that it would let us interact with our neighbors in a controlled setting, that would teach us to be better members of the galactic community. The medical corporations that controlled Earth ignored the game until they learned the power earned from clearing dungeons were just as real when day broke. Magic, supernatural abilities, and rumors exploded from nothing, and a subscription to the Tower of Somnus became a status symbol. Catherine Kate Debs doesn't have much, but it could be much worse. Born in an archaeology, she was assigned a job in the mega corporation that raised her as soon as she could work. Despite the stability of her corporate life, she wanted something more, a chance to claw her way up the rigid social and financial ladders to make something of herself. A chance that wouldn't come naturally to someone as familiar with dark alleyways and a glint of steel as she was with the office work and corporate niceties. A very, very solid synopsis, telling you exactly what you're getting into, and it does not disappoint. It is a underhand, cutthroat society where our main character dives into the underbelly of the criminal network while also working an everyday normal job, and the consequences in dealing with that. It mentioned this Tower of Somnus, and it is fascinating. It is such a cool idea to have this, like, while you live, you do these things, and while your body sleeps, you also gain more abilities. It's a cool delve of real world mixed with fantasy and an intergalactic, interstellar empire that you have to deal with as time goes on. A very, very highly recommended novel. If I think I should probably look to see if this has a patron, because I'd definitely pay for it. I'm surprised I haven't looked into it. Atos Imperium, currently on a little bit of an update and some time of a hiatus. I would highly recommend this story. But most recently, it's been, if you like harem stories, this is one of the very few ones that I actually have that actually is a harem. Like, it is. So if you enjoy that type of novel, highly recommend this one. It's kind of got a little bit of everything. But the most recent, it's been going on for a long while. This one's super long. But the most recent arc, the author and some of us as the readers have made note that things feel a little bit strange and unusual, so he's maybe rewriting these past few things. Devil's Foundry, would highly recommend. Don't know. I think this is not a quite epilogue, like a first book ending. As the author writes some more content, sits down some more things. A cool story. Super villain, superhero, have been fighting for a long time. They get magically warped to a new world and have to kind of make do. And we follow the main perspective of the super villain, a very resourceful young woman with a sadistic side, who enjoys loyalty to a supreme sense. Really good story, super cool. The world is interesting. Our main characters are both pretty cool, but our main character is the coolest. Unlike the other one, this one, the main characters, I like both the sides. Rebirth of Civilization. What is this one? This one's pretty cool. Yeah, we'll get to the Born of Caution next, because I picked this one up like last night. Birth of Civilization, it's slow updates. I think that's the biggest problem. Just author takes. I can't really complain. It's free. It's free reading. I'm taking none of these as me complaining. Just I wish it had more updates. It is a transport to another world isekai kind of story, where our main character is trying to rebuild, as the Knight of Slaves, rebuild civilization, thrust into an unusual world as they all gain powers and levels and have to deal with the consequences. Born of Caution is one I picked up last night. It is a Pokemon fanfiction. Fanfiction is very, very rare on Royal Road, and people, for the most part, shy away from it, but this thing's real good. Like, I read this all last night. It's fantastic. An irritated Pokemon might tell you to stop what you're doing. An irritated animal will probably just attack you. Pokemon, for all their power, will be open books and a breeze to care for to any competent animal handle on Earth. After a fiery death, a professional zookeeper who never outgrew Pokemon games ended up in the world of Pokemon. The entire world is thrown on its side, and it is indeed. There is some, like, I enjoyed the story. It's a cool delve. A lot of the Pokemon fanfics, I've read a few here and there. There's something really fascinating about it, like a person with knowledge and coming into the Pokemon world and like turning it on its head, because there's a lot of stuff the Pokemon world does that makes no sense. It's really cool to read about people who can manipulate the world and work on certain things and do do things that normal trainers wouldn't, and how the world reacts to it. But this one's pretty good. The main character, mental issues are a hard thing to deal with in books, because you as a reader, if you've never dealt with them as a reader, you feel annoyed. Like, I have no idea what he mentions the fiery death. It's a pretty run. I have no idea how PTSD works. And as of most recently, our character has been ignoring all the symptoms with his Pokemon, kind of helping him along the way. But most recently, it's being now kind of brought to a head. So I can't really describe it, but there's been a little bit of a growing frustration in how it's kind of handled, and that might just be a common world thing that I have no idea. But overall, a cool delve and deconstruction of the Pokemon world. Stars Have Eyes is done, but I haven't finished it in a while. As you can see, I haven't read it in 10 months, but it's still been updating pretty often. The only reason I continue this one is because Extremness is an author of a pretty well-known book that we'll get to in a little bit as we get to like the final section here. But The Stars Have Eyes is a normal bloke summons an eldritch horror, and they live together in a relationship. And if that's not a selling point, I don't know what is. It's a super cool story. Mostly in its craziness. But I just kind of lost interest as time kind of passed. Anything else here really? Yeah, okay. Magic Smithing, super good. 100%. I'm currently a patron, but you might have noticed it hasn't been updated for a month. The character has our author has most recently had a bit of a writer's block and just can't get into the mood to write. But what they have is fantastic. And they've currently suspended all their patron stuff and are trying to get back into writing. Yo, hello, how's it going? So they are. I would highly recommend the stuff that is currently written. Let me go read the synopsis because it deserves it. Second chances are rarely earned and even rarer given. Follow a new life in a new world where anything is possible. Our main character wakes up stuck as a baby, needing to decide how she will live her new life. Let's see what future she can forge for herself, and when hard work is rewarded with status points and skills levels. A very boring synopsis for a fantastic story. It's like Azariah the Healer in a sense. Not where it has a bad beginning and turns into a great novel later, but more that our main character is super cool and willing to break the world and try new things because she's from a different world. Also crafting. I've been looking for good crafting novels for the longest time, and Magic Smithing has that in there. So, good story. Currently on hiatus. We'll see if this, hopefully at one point it picks back up. Anything else here? I don't know if this Zombie Knight Saga has just stopped updating on Royal Road, but a fascinating story of a weird world. Zombie Knight is very, I'll read this one because it deserves it. Death is coming and he wants to help it. The world of Alag may seem like a normal enough place at first blush, but wade deeper into it and soon the dark, the deadly, and the mad will begin to reveal themselves. But don't worry, they usually have a sense of humor. Yeah, okay, and all the story is still here. A very good story. It has its own website, I believe. You might notice I haven't read it in 4 months, but this is the kind of story that like I'm waiting to get back into. And it's been a little while, as you can tell. Overall, really good. Search up the story, see it might be more if you're interested into it, and read from there because it follows. I mean, the flow is the same, but it's been a little while. And then everything else here has been. We've reached the point where it's been like too long to like fully. Like, you know, we start getting to the point where updates are 5-6 months away. I kind of just throw them on the wayside. Because if they're not updating on a weekly basis, usually the author has put them to the side for now. And let's end off on my favorites. There's not too many. Here's Atros Imperium, as you can see, a favorite. You do not deserve favorites, sorry. I operate favorites on favorites are very, very rare for me. Usually the story has to finish, or at least feel like a finish, or I have to enjoy the story so much it deserves so. You see Atros Imperium has not finished, but I think it deserves on my list. And then the two notable books here that I think everyone should read are both of these. Everyone Loves Large Chests is amazing. It is a very solid deconstruction of a literary RPG normal world into the world of madness and craziness. It is quite dark, and the beginning is quite interesting. If you have not read this story, I mean, you could stomach the beginning stuff. It gets crazy really fast. Super cool. I love the main character. It's also the reason I picked up one of the other books. Because it's by this extremeness. Super solid. Would highly recommend. And of course, Mother of Learning. I think one of the best novels on this entire website. It is so good. There is plot. It's a loop story, and probably one of the fourth authors of a loop story in terms of writing. So good. Would highly recommend. If you have not read Mother of Learning, it is completed. So go read it, go finish it. It is a journey that is definitely worth it. Probably one of the best novels on the site for sure. And it's not like the most crazy read and only 3,000 pages. That'll probably take a week or so to finish if you read a few hours a day, or maybe a few weeks to finish, maybe. But it's a journey. It is a good journey. It has all the subtleties of an actual like novel integrated into it, where like shit from very early on will come back later on. You're like, how did I forget that? Or how did the author think of that? So, quite the story. Super good. It's one of the few loop stories that also has like a definite ending that feels good. The beginning, the middle, the end, all of it's good. This one is a 10 out of 10. Yeah, if I could have supported on Patreon, I would have. And yeah, real good. 100% recommend. That's kind of where we're going to end off for today. I kind of wanted to make this video, as I said at the beginning, to kind of point at for my general reviews. Maybe someday in the past or in the future, we'll come back to this and we'll see how things have changed. But for now, I'll be hitting it today. Hopefully, I'm starting this. We're going to start streaming every day again. There's a few new games out, and I kind of want to play them. So we'll check those out. But hey, if you made it this far, as always, thank you for watching. I hope you have a fantastic Monday, and I'll see you all next time. As always, thanks for watching.